Narcissist, serial predator. When the narcissist interacts with another person, at least one thing must be obtained. It's usually two: control and fuel. And commonly, character traits and residual benefits are required also. Not every narcissist will want all four things from you. That's why if you impose a total no-contact regime, you will force the narcissist to seek those character traits and residual benefits and that fuel elsewhere. And the good news for the narcissist, and also for you, is that those things can readily be obtained from other people. Thus, the narcissist is more likely to leave you alone. Control, however, must always be obtained over you, and we seek usually to do that directly through what is known as the Hoover. However, where that isn't possible, or our narcissism apprehends that it's likely to fail, we move to the indirect assertion of control or utilize withdrawal. Thus, in the second and third assertions of control, we gain the control that is necessary, and once again you are left alone. It's important to demonstrate how the narcissist, when dealing with you and anybody else, is governed by the prime aims. Commonly, and understandably, people make the mistake of believing that some of it was real. Well, all of it was real. You didn't imagine it, but none of it was genuine. You think that somewhere part of us really did love you. We didn't. The narcissist may well believe that they did, where they're unaware narcissists, but the fact that they're a narcissist means they can't love you. We have no emotional empathy to generate that. You might think that the narcissist really did admire certain aspects of you. No, that admiration was just generated by our narcissism so that we could control you and draw fuel from you, etc. The sooner that you understand that your interaction with the narcissist is governed by the prime aims and nothing else, the sooner you will be able to take the action that you need to take, and the sooner you will be able to move forward. Thinking that it was something else that governed the interaction between you and the narcissist is invariably the product of emotional thinking and will keep you stuck. You need to be able to accept we didn't love you, we just needed to control you and draw fuel from you, take some of your character traits and chomp on your delicious residual benefits. We didn't think much of your children or your house, we just said that your house was amazing, your children were wonderful, because it enabled us to, control you, draw fuel from you, have access to your character traits and residual benefits. Everything that you might think of as sacred in relation to your relationship falls by the wayside. The prime aims are all. That is what governs us. Fuel is the rule. We must draw that from you, for it is our edifying life force. And I'm now going to provide you with an example of a victim, of a narcissist, an intimate victim, who was conned and who understandably failed to appreciate that she simply was an appliance that was there to cater to the four prime aims. Ruth Bashinsky writes in the Mail Online, "I thought my doctor husband was Prince Charming. Then I found out he was a serial fraudster who conned me out of $1.4 million and had left a trail of broke women in his wake." In that headline, we have there a serial fraudster demonstrating a repeated course of conduct, exhibiting an absence of emotional empathy, a sense of entitlement, a lack of boundary recognition through asset appropriation, a lack of accountability for those behaviours, and the utilisation of manipulations to lay hands on the residual benefit of money. There's also a trail of broke women in his wake, which again demonstrates a pattern of sustained behaviours. When Dorian Wilkerson got back in touch with Shereza Jackson 20 years after they first met, Hoover, she thought she'd finally found her Prince Charming, emotional thinking, until the whirlwind romance, note there's that use of that phrase again, whirlwind romance, which is a red flag, turned into a real-life nightmare. Jackson, 44, had initially known Wilkerson in high school, and decades later remembered him as a good-looking and a great athlete who played football and ran track. In 2014, his clean-cut image and her fond memories came flooding back when he contacted her on Facebook, use of social media, hunting ground. She was at a high point in her life and quickly started to believe Wilkerson was the only missing puzzle piece. She told DailyMail.com how excited she was when he told her about his work as a doctor at Emory Hospital, overjoyed to have found someone she believed shared her work ethic, mirroring. But she claims their love turned sour when Jackson uncovered a slew of dirty secrets that her husband of 6 years had been hiding from her, leaving her devastated and, by her own estimation, at least $1.4 million poorer. Wilkerson was in fact no doctor. Character trait acquisition, lie. She claims her supposed knight in shining armour was nothing more than a serial fraudster who had been charged with assault and battery, family violence, stalking, theft and extortion. Variety of criminal activities showing an absence of emotional empathy and rudimentary manipulations. And she alleges she was far from the first victim of his deceit. Other women emerged saying he had swindled them too. In March this year, she filed for divorce and in October filed a civil suit claiming that he conned her out of at least $1 million, on top of a $400,000 business investment. She claims he used her cash to open a cosmetic clinic so he could take the profits, but alleges he also forged her signature on documents to secure loans in her name, fraud, asset appropriation, and in a final blow, claims she found out he wasn't faithful, infidelity, lack of emotional empathy. In the lead up to the pair reconnecting, the single mother was raising 2 teenage daughters alone, vulnerability, whilst working at a Fortune 500 healthcare company as a regional director. She owned her own home, had 2 luxury cars, and was also a published author. Residual benefits, character traits to be obtained. Jackson claims the first time they spoke, he told her that he was a medical doctor at Emory Hospital in Atlanta and an epidemiologist for the Centers for Disease Control. She liked that he was accomplished, hard-working, and like herself, was passionate about philanthropy, mirroring. At the time, he was living in Atlanta, and she was in Florida. But during a business trip she had to take across state, the pair finally met up. She claims he had her picked up in a Bentley at a hotel, and he was wearing medical scrubs. Before their dinner date, he allegedly took her back to his apartment, a beautiful loft with stunning views of the park, so he could get changed. It didn't take long for Jackson to become smitten. She says he was intrigued by her and they appeared to share many of the same values, mirroring. Wilkerson reminded her of her military father, with whom she has a close relationship. He was tall, dark, and handsome, and he was very accomplished, she says. He was not just an MD, but also a PhD and attended these prestigious universities and would lecture around the country on vaccines and infectious diseases. After kissing many toads, she thought she had found her Prince Charming. She claims he was loving and attentive, flattery, manipulation, putting her on a pedestal, idealization, and showering her with gifts and lavish trips, bribery, golden period. On November the 27th, 2016, the pair wed at an exclusive venue in Fort Lauderdale in front of 200 friends and family members. Her 2 adult daughters were so taken by the man their mother loved, they legally changed their last names to match their new stepdad. A year into their wedding bliss, she says she supported him in opening a cosmetic centre that would offer breast augmentation, tummy tucks and Brazilian butt lifts. She claims his role at the centre would be bringing the doctors in to do the procedures and manage the day-to-day operations. Jackson, who was busy working her day job, claims she financially invested in Best You Now, which would be located in Broward County, Florida. At his insistence, she allegedly gave him the funds to get started by emptying her savings account and 401k. She estimates this figure overall grew to as much as $400,000. She claims she wasn't actively involved in their business at first, but she eventually noticed that the centre wasn't making any money despite having a full roster of client bookings. To help their investment and keep their business afloat, she says she left her corporate job to devote herself entirely to their cosmetic centre. When she started questioning Wilkerson about missing money, threat to control, she claims he had an answer for everything. she began believing he was a master manipulator. As their romance began to unravel, she says she started to hear stories about Wilkerson stealing money from other people. Lack of boundary recognition, lack of emotional empathy. Several women who were allegedly deceived by Wilkerson reached out to her to tell her that he's a dangerous person, is not who he says he is. They warned her to be careful. One woman, who told Jackson that she is friends with Wilkerson's first ex-wife, sent her a text that Jackson shared with Daily Mail. She described Wilkerson as a master con artist. "I've known him for 16 years, and he has always been a liar and a con," she wrote. Increasingly anxious at realising the man she fell in love with seemed to be a con artist, Jackson's worst fears were realised, she says, when she saw a text he'd sent to a male friend saying he didn't need her anymore because she's broke. Residual benefit no longer applicable, potential disengagement trigger. Jackson began digging into her husband. She was appalled to discover he was a convicted felon, criminality. Of course, this was something she could have checked at the beginning of the relationship if she'd have understood that it is appropriate to do so. But of course her emotional thinking and his charm and manipulations caused her not to believe there was a problem. As I have explained to people many, many times, the relationship is possibly the most important investment that you'll ever engage in your life, and people treat it as if they're buying a packet of crisps. He'd been arrested for fraud in 2002, battery and assault in 2007, and battery, assault and family violence in 2009, and was still on probation. She obtained a report of his criminal history that dates back to 2001, that was obtained through the Clerk of Courts in Atlantic City Probation and Clerk of Courts in Georgia, where he was facing a domestic battery charge. In August 2001, felony charges were filed against him for theft and extortion of more than $75,000 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He pled guilty and was convicted on September 6, 2002, and was placed on probation. In February 2007, he was booked on simple battery and released from prison on $5,000 bail. In February 2009, he was arrested for simple battery, family violence, and was released from prison on $10,000 bail, according to records from the Fulton County Sheriff's Department in Georgia. He was also charged in August 2017 for speeding, lack of accountability, in Broward County, Florida, and for careless driving, lack of accountability, in Pembroke Pines, Florida in January 2020. He hasn't been employed since December 2022. She claims to have uncovered more disturbing evidence, which include Wilkerson being fined for pretending to be a medical physician. Lie. Jackson says when she confronted him, he filed a bogus police report against her, having to do with joint finances, and tried to get her arrested. Projection. He'd always play the victim, often, and blame others. Victimhood, blame shifting, Jackson said of her experience with Wilkerson. She shared an audio recording of her speaking with a former employee, informing her that Wilkerson was signing her name and in the name of two other doctors from their cosmetic centre on documents. Fraud. Upon learning this, she also learned he was using her credit to access hundreds of thousands of dollars in her name. Sense of entitlement, fraud, lack of emotional empathy. She tried to file a restraining order against him, concerned for her safety and the safety of her two daughters, but was told the case is a civil matter that needed to be handled in the divorce proceedings. His claim of being a medical doctor also turned out to be part of the web of deceit. On the Cosmetic Centre's Best You Now website, Wilkerson was referred to as Dr. Body and a rejuvenation specialist and cosmetic analyst, but online records do not show him holding a medical license in the state of Florida or Georgia, contrary to what his LinkedIn profiles show. In October 2017, the Florida Department of Health sent Wilkerson a cease and desist letter. It states the department has probable cause to believe that Wilkerson is not licensed by the department or the Board of Medicine and is practicing medicine and leading the public to believe he is a medical doctor. A Centers for Disease Control and Prevention official told Daily Mail there is no record of Doreen Wilkerson in any of their current CDC employee directories. In December 2022, she says they closed the business. When people start finding out about him, he tries to silence them, nullification of threat to control, and goes after their livelihood and freedom, she said. She added, nothing ever happens to him, and he continues to swindle women and business owners and scares them, so they don't come for him. Jackson believes Wilkerson is currently living with another woman. Swift move on to another intimate partner primary source. In March, Jackson filed for divorce and in October filed a civil suit against her ex. Jackson made several allegations, including that her husband forged the wife's name on documents to obtain loans and for his own personal gain. She claims Wilkinson has a pattern of defrauding women and leaving them with high debt once he feels he can no longer benefit from them anymore. The documents state that wife became aware husband was previously convicted for fraud, a conviction which husband downplayed and about which he misled wife. Husband even went so far as to fabricate parts of his past to wife, revision of history. For example, husband misrepresented that he was formerly an epidemiologist with the Centres for Disease Control and Prevention. She also alleged that he committed adultery throughout their marriage, lack of emotional empathy, infidelity. Upon information and belief, several accusations of sexual harassment have been made against husband by third parties. Asked if Jackson felt that Wilkinson ever loved her, she told Daily Mail, "I don't think a narcissist has the ability to love. They are self-centred and only think about themselves." Daily Mail made numerous attempts to seek comment from Wilkinson. He declined to make a statement on the record. The lady in question has written a book about her experience called Successful Women Get Played Too, and it once again demonstrates how another narcissist has entered the lives of a successful woman and has taken the residual benefit of her money, has harmed her by causing her to believe that she was loved, by making her believe that she'd met her Prince Charming. And as so many of you realise, all of these behaviours that I've described are those of a narcissist in action. Once again, it demonstrates the necessity of checking for those red flags and black flags prior to entering a relationship. But so often, people run and charge headlong into a relationship without undertaking precautionary measures. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.